Hey friends, want to talk about some cross stitch? Hey everyone, my name's Laura. My pronouns are she, her, and if you hadn't figured it out, I really like Tarsiers. That's Hubnum. He's kind of my mascot. I actually taught a summer camp last summer and I brought him along and one of the students made him a flower crown and it was the best thing ever. In any case, remember Tarsier. I like things that are apparently hard to pronounce and most normal people don't know about. Anyway, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy my rambly side stories that happen all the time. I really appreciate you spending some time with me. It brings me endless joy growing up being told, don't talk to strangers on the internet. And then look at us now, intentionally trying to meet people and make friends on the internet and putting all of this stuff just like online so anybody and their mother can watch it. But anyway, yeah. I really like cross stitch, and I assume that's why you're here too. Last time I kind of did this like really targeted thing because I had made some gifts for my coworkers because I'm leaving to go to a new school, and I wanted to share all of those. If you haven't picked up on it, I'm a teacher, though I don't think I've actually said what I teach. And someone in my last video commented that they wanted to hear more about my new job. So I don't know. What do you think I teach? I'm just a little bit hesitant to give too many like specific details on the internet because it is the internet. Just like anyone can reach it, can watch this video. I don't know. I'm still warming up to the idea, but it'll be more fun for me if you like actively make guesses and tell me what data are in my other videos. Do you think supports your guess? Um, I feel like there's a bunch of clues. I did this past year, I transitioned to an age group that was new to me, but I did transition into something that is more standard, I guess, easier to guess, more likely for people to guess. I don't know. I would love to hear your guesses. It will bring me endless joy and entertainment. Um, since we last spoke, I have several really exciting life updates. I signed a lease in the new place I'm living. Oh, I'm moving from Boston to New York City. I already said that. Um, yeah, the New York housing market is bonkers. I've lived there before. I know a little bit about it, but when I last lived there, my first year, I had graduate student housing, and then I got to like take over a friend's apartment. So I never actually had to go through the process. And yeah, was not a good time. I am so glad I have a place. And I'm definitely spending a little bit more than I would really like to. But I was intentionally going with a place that I really like, that I will be comfortable being for multiple years. So I do not need to go through this whole rigmarole again. But I've signed a lease, I've booked movers, and I wanted to share some things with you before I enter into box hell, which is my next stage. Um, One thing I have been discovering is apparently with this impending move, what I have been drawn to do is frame things. I have been wanting to fully finish things. I think in my head, if I frame something, then this gets packed with decorations rather than like I had all these components. I actually had all of this stuff for a couple of months before I put it together. But if it hadn't been finished, it would still go in like the cross stitch supplies. And knowing me, once I move to my new place, it's probably going to be a couple months before I start finishing again. So because I still have everything set up here, it was like easier to do it all on this end. So I framed two projects recently, these two. These are both frames from Mini Frame Factory on Etsy. I love her selection because it's just a bunch of like beautiful but small frames and like interesting ones too. And for both of these projects, I actually had cut the fabric to size for a while and it was just sitting on my table. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do because when I lace things, oh, you can't see because I hid the back like this, I need the edges of my fabric to be hemmed so it doesn't pull out when I lace it. And I don't have a sewing machine. I have zero interest in getting a sewing machine. I am really, really trying to avoid hobby creep. Like, I love cross stitch. I don't need tools or supplies for any other type of crafts. So eventually, what I did is both of these pieces of fabric, I just took to the dry cleaners a couple blocks from me, and I asked them to serge it. It did take a couple minutes to be like, nope, nope, no rolled over. Like, doesn't matter the color of thread. Thankfully, I was able to scroll through my pictures and find a picture where I had shown the lacing. So yes, super happy with this. Oh no. Well, I forget what these things are called, which is going to be a problem for when I run out and I need to buy more. Obviously, I figured out what they were called once because I bought them one time. But this is how you kind of put something in the back when there is no frame mounting stuff. But yeah, the wood in this one was particularly hard, so I found it hard to get these in. And yeah, apparently that one wasn't in securely enough, so I don't even know where it went. Well, that will be a fun problem for future Laura. So this pattern is one I designed. It's Sea Bunny Nudibranch Mandala. So this I did a little bit of research, or very gentle internet research to figure out what are the different color morphs of this nudibranch, put them together in a pattern. Mostly happy with it. I feel like might want to do a second pass on this idea. I wish I had left more open space so the fabric could shine through, because the fabric I used is really gorgeous and you just can't see much of it here. This is 40 count opalescent linen in deep impact from Extra Design. And if you look at a big piece of this fabric, it has this gorgeous modeling. It really does look like an ocean, but you can't tell when I don't let any of it shine through. So I think I do want to maybe do a second pass and maybe do a larger version, and there's a little bit more places for the fabric to shine through. I keep on saying I'm gonna like format this pattern and release it to sell maybe so other people can stitch it. I don't know. Do you care? Am I the only person who likes nudibranchs? Would you stitch something like this? Anyway, I'm really happy to have this so I can pack it away very soon. The other one I did the same thing with is this beautiful whale shark. I am highly amused at just like how thick the frame is. I think there's more frame than like exposed area here, but you know, whale sharks deserve a little bit of splendor. Whale sharks are common around Okinawa, which is why I was really excited to stitch this. And I think I restitched my initials like 2 or 3 times before I found something I was happy with, and I finally put them here so they look like bubbles coming out of the whale shark's mouth. And this was another fun little 1/1, and all the white dots, I left those as negative space. In the pattern, they were stitched with white thread, but I don't feel like doing that. Also, that's specifically why I chose to stitch it on white fabric, so I could do that. But yeah, I'm really happy that I was able to find a frame that worked, because was just in Mini Frame Factory's Etsy shop. Yeah, me looking at their selection is a little dangerous. And I also like how you can just order it without the glass. I know a lot of people like to frame their stuff with glass, but for me, like I like the stitching to be a little bit more visible and there. And putting it behind glass, I know it protects your stitching, but I want to see it and be able to see that texture. So really excited to be able to hang both of these up once I get to my new place. And then I had a couple of round finishes. Let's do this one. Oh, so I think I told this story before, but both of these sharks were stitched for kind of a charity meme battle that I'm in this ecology meme group, and we like form up into teams, and we try to fundraise for our team to raise more money than the other teams, and I am part of the at least 74 shark researchers group, so I was stitching sharks. So yes, very, very happy with both of these. This is a single motif from Star Parade's Nautical Sampler. Just so many different deep sea creatures. But this is just a hammerhead shark, which I thought was a really nice one to pull. And this is also on Extra Design fabric, actually the same piece of fabric that this one was on. I am a little disappointed at my placement of the pattern because the fabric has this gorgeous modeling, but you can't tell at all. I did not place it in a right place that you could see that there are multiple colors on this piece of fabric. Um, yeah, I'm still learning how to use mottled fabric. I didn't do great on this one. But the full sampler from Star Parade here is just gorgeous. And eventually I do want to stitch this one, but I have some like potentially complicated ideas. So we'll see if I get there. There are so many like things I would like to stitch. I'm very hesitant to make cross stitch plans. You might notice I like don't tell you what my plans are because they change so much. And this gorgeous frame, and look how nicely finished the back is. It's from 3 inches hand embroidery. I love their frames. They are by far my favorite because like all of them have beautifully finished backs, and you just don't need to worry about that. And then again, another 3 inches hand embroidery frame. So this one is 3 sleeping owls. This is an old woodblock print. This pattern was charted by my friend Nati. She did such a fabulous job. Like this is an excellent rendition of this woodblock print, but also just like a great choice of source material here. So this is 1/1. Ooh, this was Mislaid Pages fabric. So this was 32 count. I want to say it was the Sugalite color, so kind of this purples with some blues. This one is a rare instance where I actually placed the pattern well on the piece of fabric. There was kind of this circular part that was a little bit lighter, so that's where I stitched this, and you can see the black thread really pops. So again, this one is about to get packed away, but I am really glad to have it all ready so I can just hang it up immediately in my new place. So yeah, I'm really happy with that one. Oh, I apparently didn't take this one out of the plastic. You might have thought you were done seeing rabbits from me, but I made one more. I thought there was another coworker that I was gonna see, so I made one last minute, and that didn't happen. So now I just have an extra, which honestly is good. You might have noticed, I tend to give a lot of gifts. That is a cultural thing that I grew up with, this idea of omiyagi, and so I was so excited to tell you all about it in my last video. Um, so I just, like to have a lot of gifts on hand, and sometimes it's helpful to have a stash because especially if I'm doing cross stitch, it takes time. You can't do that at the drop of a hat. And like a part of me is feeling a little regretful because I spent like the past at least month, probably more than that, just pretty much exclusively stitching gifts. I really do need to kind of go back and start stitching for myself. So I think I'm going to be a little bit more vigilant about that. I'm learning to not promise stitching for other people as much because it is for me. It is a hobby. So I think I told you a little bit last time about how when I was in New York, I did a couple of last minute trips so I could go view apartments and did the whole apartments hunt and all of that. I hung out with my friend Aya, and recently, shortly after we saw each other in person, she charted me some tarsiers. So I stitched part of one of them. You can see this is just a head. And this is, again, more of my 1/1 stitching. This is 32 count. I want to say like natural linen with silver. Honestly, one of my favorite fabrics because just look how sparkly it is. I hope the sparkle shows up at least a little bit on camera. It's amazing in person. Anyway, I started stitching this one, and then I realized I had messed up the eye. The first eye I stitched, it was too wide. So I was like, okay, I can make the eye on the other side match. So I did. And then I finished the head and I was like, oh, this now means the head is 2 stitches wider. And like the body is underneath this guy. So that would mean I would need to fudge the entire rest of the pattern. So I was like, and we're stopping here. This guy just gets ahead. So I'm sorry, little Tarsier head. That's all you get. Eventually, I do plan to go on and stitch a few more. But yeah, I don't know. I've been doing a lot of tiny stitching, and it can be really fun, especially when I need to be on the go. Um, But I've been kind of enjoying like doing larger things on my scroll frame again, just because you could there's different types of projects you can do. And I've also just been trying to like burn through some of my stash of kitted out projects because like I love my tiny stitching, but it's been a lot of like kitting up new projects and starting new things, and I really do need to start working through this. Pile of projects that I've already planned, and especially since I've like kept on going back in and like rating projects I've already put together for the new ones I want to do. So yeah, I need to start going through and either admit that I'm never going to stitch this or do it. So I told you how I saw my friend Aya, but I also got to see my friend Jessie in person not too long ago. Jessie Bobo Stitches was in the Boston area for her, I want to say law school reunion. So that was really nice. Jessie is just such a wonderful person. She is also mixed Asian. And she looks like some of my relatives. Not like any one relative in particular, but there's like similarities in her facial features, which are just very, very comforting. And that's not something I get very often because it's just a mix that isn't necessarily what I'm around all the time. And it was nice to have someone with kind of some similar life experiences when normally I don't get to share those with anyone. And I think there's a lot of similarities in people who are not necessarily the mainstream, but you do have to search a little harder sometimes to find those or to convince other people to see those similarities. And I just have this really warm memory of, thankfully, she's much better at taking photos than I am. So she wanted to take a photo at the end. And looking at that photo, our face shapes look kind of similar. Because that's one of the things I always notice. I pass as white a lot, but whenever I'm in a photo with all of my white friends, like my face is a different shape. And I've always noticed that. Even though I pass and people tell me I have passing privilege, I still have never quite felt like I fit in. So whenever you get to have those moments of where you feel like you belong or you match someone else's, is I really, really do treasure. And because of Jessie, she actually turned me on to a needlework shop that's a little bit of ways from me. It was about an hour drive, but I made it out to Stitch, New England. Actually, it was on the drive to New York because it's about an hour south from me and like kind of in between Boston and New York. So I was like, you know what? I can make this drive less terrible. So I picked up a few things. I got Jeanette Douglas's Chubby Bunny. I have been dreaming of this pattern. It's the Year of the Rabbit. It is just totally adorable. I must stitch this soon. And no, I'm not taking out of the plastic. I'm sorry. There's probably a glare, but we are keeping these patterns nice. The other pattern I picked up, I'm like, oh no, what have I got myself into? But this is Sir Thomas from Glendon Place. He is a beast. Oh my goodness. What even is the stitch count on this? Can I find it? Oh yeah, the stitch count is 210 by 205. Yeah, this is not a small pattern. So the reason I was drawn to this one is I've noticed there's a lot of wild turkeys in the city of Boston, and I would see a lot of them on my drive to work. And that's just not something I've encountered before. So I was looking for a pattern that would make me think of this year in Boston for me. And, turkeys have been a lot of it. Even though I don't think I've told you about them before, that is definitely something that I have noticed about this area. That's been a little bit different for me. I don't know when I'm going to stitch this. It's really big. It calls for some rainbow gallery threads and silk lame braid. And beads. It's just a lot of different things, and I've never stitched with silk lame braid. Do you have advice? What is it? What count of fabric works well for that? because I was kind of wondering, do I want to modify what the threads are? Do I want to forego the beads so I could maybe do it like 1/1? Because that might seem less intimidating. I don't know. What would you do on something that is a beast that calls for 30 colors of floss and 14 colors of silk lame braid? Yeah, a little intimidated by this, but he's gorgeous. So maybe he's worth it. I don't know. This one I do need to think about before I'm gonna start. And then the last exciting thing I got at Stitch New England is this beautiful piece of fabric. So this is a fat quarter of Berrylicious, 40 count linen by Whiz Fabrics. I believe this is a local dyer. I think the dyer was in the shop when I was there. It's just this lovely, ooh, hello, kind of pinky purpley thing. I was going through my fabric selection because I was trying to figure out fabric for something else, and I realized I just have a bunch of purple fabric. I mean, I kind of already knew that, but like more than I thought. And specifically like light purple. This is definitely more pinky than the other ones I have, but I'm like, oh, I might need to start expanding out the colors of fabric I buy. I was trying to find light blue fabric and I just like apparently don't have that in my stash. So yeah, I have a tendency to be like, ooh, that's pretty, I'll buy it. But when you buy in that manner and you like the same thing, all of my stash is very similar colors. So I might need to be a little bit more intentional about going through my stash. Another thing I've been thinking about in my stash is I need to just like work through the fabric I have. But yeah, great experience at Stitch New England. They also have a beautiful online store, so definitely shop there as well. Support all of our local needlework shops. The owner, Pam, she has a beautiful Flosstube channel, Stitching in the Land of Good Enough. I've also been enjoying watching her, so thank you so much, Jessie, for this recommendation. I feel a little silly. I didn't know of them before. Not that I want to drive an hour away, but sometimes it's nice to do that. So great time at Stitch New England, and I will continue to be a customer. Another fun thing I did is I just popped this out not that long ago. So this is JBW's Designs Kitties in the Round. I love their series of just different motifs in the round. So this is 40 count fabric from Mislaid Pages in X-ray. This was an interesting experience stitching this one because when I first started, this is a 2/2. Like my needle was not going through the fabric that easily. I was like, oh, is 2/2 like too much for 40 count? Like what's going on? But I've done 2/2 on 40 count in other places. Like this one is 2/2 40 count. And this one was just fine. But then when I got to other places in the fabric, my threads went through just fine. So I think there are just some parts which happen to have a slightly tighter weave. But it got me thinking, because I think I've definitely heard of people stitching 1/2 on 40 count. What do you do? How many threads do you stitch over 40 count? I think I've also heard of people doing 1/2 on 36 count, which that just seems wild to me. I do like pretty thick coverage, and yes, like these stitches are like very tight and like kind of stick out from the fabric, but that's kind of what I like. I love the textural difference in cross stitch. But if you didn't like kind of this difference here and you liked your stitches to lay flatter, you would definitely want to do just one thread. But because I was like so unsure, I first stitched like the first row or so and I was like, this isn't feeling right. And I pulled it out and I tried it again with just one thread. I'm like, oh no, this is not nearly enough coverage. So then I pulled that out and restitched it. I should have just like kept in my first couple of stitches, done a test elsewhere on the fabric. I did not need to pull them out because that meant I stitched the first row or so like 3 times before this. But all in all, I'm really happy with how this turned out. There's just something about the modeling of this fabric which makes me think of the pillars of creation. Also specifically like these little pillar things here really make me think of the pillars of creation. I really wish this was like moved down and diagonally just a little bit. I wanted these a little bit more in the pattern. I mean, if I had really wanted that, I should have like started stitching exactly where I wanted it, but I like to start at the top, so that's what I did. And, you know, it's not too bad. I think I might, when I frame this eventually, I might just leave a little bit more of a margin so you get to appreciate this gorgeous fabric. I was noticing when I was taking my pictures so I could share this to Instagram, the fabric was not showing up true to color at all. Like, I cannot figure out how to take good pictures of fabric just using my iPhone. Really makes me have a lot of respect for Jessie of Mislaid Pages because sure, there's a little bit of splendor lost when you look at the pictures of all of the fabric that's up for sale on their website, but like they're pretty true to color. It's like I am impressed with what they're able to get up there because I cannot get color to show up very well. I think I also posted some like fuzzy and out of focus pictures and I just posted them to Instagram. I have some friends who are like professional photographers. So I do kind of wonder, do they run across my really bad photos and just like, does it cause them physical pain? Yeah, I have many talents and photography just really isn't one of them. Yep. But yeah, super happy with this one. I, of course, like to have little black cats because of my Ruthie. And yes, sparkle. So much sparkly fabric. Another thing, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have noticed I started a big new project. I started the Ukrainian Sampler by West Needle. So this was something that she put together over a year ago. She's first stitched it for herself. It's a collection of a bunch of different motifs. I'm pretty sure each one is from a different region of Ukraine. So it's a really cool way to show some of like the different cultural diversity there. And she did a Sal last summer, and that's when I originally like got the pattern and got everything kitted up, and then I didn't because I had other things going on. So I was really excited just to finally start this. And because another thing I was thinking of, like, I love to stitch all of these smalls, but I don't want to like break up some of my larger pieces of fabric for smalls because I also have bigger projects. So I need to stitch some of these bigger projects so then I can put some of those offcuts into my smalls collection. So I tried to start a bigger project and I was like really excited. I did a little bit of color modification on the Ukrainian sampler, got 3 motifs in, and then I looked at it and I realized I didn't love it. The pattern is great. It's not the pattern. I made a mistake. I was trying to be too creative in some of my floss modifications, and also the fabric I chose was not quite right. So what I have here is this is my first version of the Ukrainian sampler. So I stitched 3 motifs actually, and I unstitched 2 of them, and now I just put this and I finished it into this little ornament thing. So this is what this light blue uh, Edinburgh linen from, it's just those white art pre-cuts. So like a beautiful light blue, just wasn't quite right for this project. The other mistake I did is I was trying to be creative. And instead of the black outline, I was like, what if I did dark purple? Because I love purple. So this is DMC 154, very dark grape. And true to its name, it is a very dark grape. I think I would have liked it more if it had been like a much darker purple and more like a violet rather than a grape. But like all of this together just wasn't quite right. So I didn't want to completely abandon it because I did put a lot of time and effort into it. So that's why I finished it at this little ornament. I had these little beads along the edge. I did so good. I did have to restitch some of them because I didn't do a good job, but you know what? Sometimes it's worth it. Not like super stoked at all of the colors here. I chose to do the green because there's like these tiny little green bits here. So I was like, ooh, what if I bring that out? And then I chose the blue beads to like bring that color out. I don't know. Maybe I should have picked more dominant colors, but it's done. What I did for this is inside is a piece of chipboard and then cotton batting on the front and back. So it's like a little bit soft, but still more squarish. It's not a pillow. But I don't know, I was having a little bit of difficulty getting like really straight edges because you can see there's just a tiny little bit of a bump there. So I don't know. What do you think of this type of finish? Do you like it? Should I do this again or should I move on? Um, I did, however, I'm getting better at putting little beads on the corners. I did better. But I'm not giving up on this pattern. Like, the pattern is amazing. So I restarted it. And this time I am doing the black for the outline. So this one's kind of fun because you can see here are them both next to each other. And also the other thing I was noticing when I was stitching this one originally, I was just sad there was no sparkle in the project. So that's one of the reasons why now it's on sparkly fabric. So this is 36 count fabric from X2 Design. I don't know what color this is. I got it in a pack, but it's just like kind of a nice neutral. And it's not going to be competing with the colors too much. But I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of a white background. So I wanted something non-white. I wanted something sparkly, because of course, when you're in doubt, you do need to make it sparkle. And if I'm going to be putting in this much time and effort into a project, like, you do really want to love it. I'm a little afraid that I am going to run out of floss, partially because I've had to raid the floss for this project a few times for other things. Never a lot, but like it was multiple times. I also kind of forgot how much of a thread waster I am when I'm using a loop start and doing 2/2. I'm pretty frugal with my thread when I'm stitching 1/1. But when I'm stitching 2/2, I'm like, no, let's just cut it. And it goes right into my jar. I've started saving all of my orts. I have many jars because my goal, like kind of my justification for myself is it's okay for me to be a thread waster as long as I save them. And eventually I'm hoping that maybe I can stuff them into a biscornu or a small pillow. So yeah, I have multiple jars of orts saved up. And I've also started saving some of my, like the tiny offcuts of my fabric that are too small to use for 1/1 stitching. So the fabric can also help. So it's not just threads. Because I think if it was just threads, it would take forever before I would have enough to stuff a pillow. But with extra fabric, it will go a little faster. So yeah. Do you do that? What do you do? What do you do with your orts? And for some reason I skipped over it. I have all of my stuff laid out in front of me on my ironing board here. I have probably the finish I'm the most excited about. Thank you, Miriam. So this is Miriam's Pride Star. Yes, Pride Star. So Miriam came out with this gorgeous pattern with the Progress Pride flag, but also some motifs that I believe are inspired by traditional motifs in Iranian culture. And I love these bands of bold color. I did modify the color palette of the original pattern just a little bit. I made some of them a little brighter. Um, and originally when I first started this, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like put it in a square frame. So I like made sure to have enough margins. And then I was like about halfway through and I'm like, no, this is gonna be an amazing pillow. So I did have a lot of extra margins that went into my smalls. So I'm pretty sure this piece actually was the margins I cut off. Because you don't need that much margins when you're stitching a pillow like this. So the thing I'm really proud about, so I took Miriam's pattern and then I inverted it. So I like these are all the spaces in here. And then this is just the reverse of this pattern. So it's like a true inversion back here. And it worked out. So you can follow any one of these stripes and it matches up perfectly and continues. So all of the colors line up. And then the cherry on top is I beaded the edge. And I made sure all of the colors lined up as well. So like the red beads match up with the red lines here and for all of the colors. Oh my goodness. So notice how many different colors there are and how many different colors of beads I had to acquire. yeah, I apparently forgot to bring it over here with me already. Oof. So when I was at Michael's, I just had to buy this package so I could get all the beads, colors I needed. Because originally I was like, okay, can I just get a tube of each color of beads? But there wasn't the selection the Michaels I went to had. It was a teeny bit picked over, so I couldn't get all of the colors I needed in the same type of seed beads. So this was the only way I could get all of them at one time. So I feel a little ridiculous, and also I feel like I've now like committed. I have to do a bunch of beading. So I actually did this first. And partially I did this one because I'm like, well, I have a bunch of beads. Should use them up. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited, but also some regret. Because like, look, I bought an entire new thing right before I need to move. These are also not the highest quality beads out there, but again, it was the only way I could get all of the colors I needed then. If I had really wanted to do a good job, I would have had to wait, go find like a real bead store who would have had a better selection all at one time. But you know, now I do just have this collection of a bunch of different colors. I haven't even opened what's in this middle part here. Apparently a whole bunch of extra stuff. Okay, so I have some like bigger beads. I don't know if I'm ever going to use those. Looks like these are some crimps. And then this lifts off. Oh, wow. Ooh, I get some pliers. Ooh, round nose pliers. Nice little bead scoop. This looks like a scoopula from a chem lab to me. Ooh, some needles, beading wire. Ooh, and some cheapo beading thread. So yeah, fun stuff that I can use later, maybe. We'll see. I'll at least be using the seed beads around the edge because apparently this is the new way I finish all of my projects. Because yeah, I'm trying to figure out like nice and why are you not fitting on? Okay, I don't need to figure this out right now. I can figure that out later. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out ways I can finish projects that are more than just framing. I mean, frames are nice, but if I just framed everything I do, that's a lot on my walls. So trying to figure out more fun ways to do things. And you know, I love my pillows. Here's some other pillows, and adding the beads around the edge just gives it a nice little extra pizzazz. So I am happy with this beading, but working on these corners, feel like I'm happy with two out of the four corners. Like this one did a good job. This one also pretty good job. This one, what's going on here? I don't know. Why is there that much of a gap? And this one also like just what the knot is way too visible, but it's fine. Everything is fine. So yeah, these these are the things I've been working on. This beauty is what I will be working on while I enter into box hell because I can't just pack. I think if I only packed, I would lose a little bit of sanity. So it's nice to have at least one project to keep me busy, and I don't think there's any way I'll finish that before I move. Um, I even wrote some notes here. I started listening to audiobooks while I stitch, which has been really rewarding. So I have two books I'd love to share with you. Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley is fabulous. So this is, I'm pretty sure it's an Indigenous author about a mixed Anishinaabe protagonist. So there has been some deaths in her community, and she is partnering with the FBI to investigate and try to figure out what's going on. So it's a lot about identity, being true to your culture, and a lot of issues around murdered and missing Indigenous women. So I would definitely give that one a listen, and I'll make sure to put a link in the description box so you can find that easily. The other one I really enjoyed lately is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin Tan. This is a beautiful modern kind of update and reinterpretation of the story of Chang'e, the Chinese moon goddess. It was just lovely. I really enjoyed this book. And both of them had really great narrators on the audiobook version. Yeah, I wish I had started doing audiobooks earlier. I'm generally not an auditory person. I've always been, oh, like you need to write it down. If I just hear it, I'm not going to get it. But at least when it is a book for pleasure, I have been enjoying it. There were only a few moments where I needed to rewind it so I could hear something again. I'm not sure I would want to do an audiobook of something a little bit more dry. But I've been doing things that are more auditory since I've been stitching because my hands and eyes are busy. The other thing, I forgot to say what day it is because also I never do that. One thing I've been wondering, because as I've been watching a lot of Flosstube recently, like most other people like acknowledge what day it is. Is that important? Should I start doing that? Today is Tuesday, June 20th. Um, I'm so excited that school is over. People have been asking me for the past couple of weeks, like, oh, when does school end? I haven't been entirely sure how to answer because there were like so many last days of different things because we had a last day of classes, but then we had to come back for another day, and that's where we had like closing ceremonies and student awards. So is that the actual last day of school? But then I also had to go back for graduation, which was mandatory for faculty. And then after that, we had more faculty professional development days. So, like, that's four different last days of school for completely different reasons. But now I am finally done. And yeah, just have to do this whole moving thing. I'm so excited to be on the other side of this. The other thing of note is Juneteenth was yesterday. So it's nice that it is now a national holiday in the States. But I don't know, it, it does feel a little weird that a lot of people in this country went from not being aware of this holiday's existence to now everybody's celebrating it. Um, I'm going to put a link to an activist I found on Instagram, Nikki Black. She has some excellent thoughts around Juneteenth that I would appreciate if you would read. Um, I think it is better in her words. But yes, I will put that in the link below. There's a lot of stuff happening in the month of June. It is Pride Month. I stitched a Pride related pattern in the correct month. I generally do a terrible job of stitching patterns in their awareness months. This is a first for me. It's Pride. It is also Indigenous History Month. Later in the month is also Ire no Hi, which is the Day of Remembrance for the Battle of Okinawa, where about a third of the island civilian population perished during World War II. So make sure your thoughts are with all of these events and peoples who are fighting for rights and liberation. I would love to hear what you were doing for any of these things to help enact real change or to support people from any of these groups. Again, thank you so much for spending time with me, especially for making it to the end of all of my rambles. Yeah, I would love to hear. Do I need to do an intro? Do I need to acknowledge the date and what all of those things are? How do you stitch on 40 count? How many threads should I be using? Another thing I was thinking of is like some of my Flosstube friends have just like the most beautiful like closers, Bobo Jessie stitches, and her Have a Stitching Good Time, So Me Sarah, like what Be Well and Stitch Happy. Oh no, I feel embarrassed. I should know this. And I was like, what can I have? And then I realized Nati already stitched it for me. So with all of the things going on in your life, when in doubt, make it sparkle. But wait, I cannot believe I almost forgot this. I was saving it specifically. Do you know? Do you know what this is? This is the last creme brulee. I mean, not the last ever, but the last creme brulee I'm making before I'm packing all of my ramekins away to move. I have three different sets of ramekins now because, yes, I do need that many. I had some of my favorite coworkers. Ooh, did a good job with that over last week, so I wanted to, make some to share with them. But I wanted to save the last one to have with you all. I was a little worried. This is about a week old at this point. Maybe it's last Tuesday. But still delicious. So this one was a fun one. So I went to a local tea store in the Boston area. And so this one is infused with this tea. They're the Hung Shui Oolong. This is from Mem Tea in Cambridge. Highly recommend. They have a pretty good selection. I do tea. I've seen better selections out there. But the tea they have is pretty good. And like their Hung Shui. Oh my goodness. Like I thought I liked oolongs. And this is just wow. You might be able to tell how much I like this tea by how big of a bag I bought. This is 16 ounces of tea, or uh, yes, 16 ounces. This is a lot of tea. This was not cheap. But I deserve I deserve it. This was kind of an end of the year present for me because I just transitioned into a new age group. I was a first year teacher at my past school, but it was, a 1 year position. So then I had to go and find a new one. And like, there was a fair amount of stress involved in the past year. And I'm very excited for my new position, but I do need to get my new position or get to my new position and set up a new life. And so, yes, now I get to do all of that with 16 ounces of my new favorite tea. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they also have an online store, so I didn't need to buy it in person, but I wanted it. And this means I can share the link so you can buy it too. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and when in doubt, make it sparkle.